The stars had long forgotten the name of Earth. 20 millennia had passed since humans had last spoken in the Galactic Council, and most assumed the primitive species had been wiped out in one of the early purges. Records were scarce, corrupted, or deliberately erased by those who didn't want the old stories remembered. Commander Darnik Val of the Zarn Dominion barely gave the outer sectors a glance on his patrols. They were dead space, unclaimed, dark, full of ancient debris and collapsed wormholes. No trade, no life, no threat. A perfect place to send a man whose loyalty was in question. Darnik leaned back in his chair, tired of the endless scans. His ship, Tal Rith, cruised silently past a broken moon in a system without a name. The crew was thin, mostly dregs of the fleet, cast-offs like him. He glanced at his first officer. "Another empty run," Darnik muttered. The officer only shrugged. "Nothing ever stirs out here." But then it happened. Without warning, the proximity alarms blared. Red lights bathed the bridge, and the comms board lit up with ancient code bursts. Nothing modern, nothing they could recognize. Static hissed across the speakers. "What is that?" Darnik barked, snapping upright. The officer stared at the console. His hands trembled. "Sir, this is pre-war signal structure, at least 20,000 years old. I don't understand. It's coming from there." A point of space, dead black and invisible moments ago, now pulsed with gravitational distortion. Slowly, agonizingly slow, a shadow emerged. An enormous object, metal, scarred and pitted, a ship. But not like any ship built in the last 1,000 generations. No Zarn design, no Dominion markings. The hull was brutal, angular, ancient human aesthetic, long thought extinct. Along the side, half hidden under layers of debris and impact scarring, words flickered faintly in old Earth script. SSV. Nemesis Darnik's throat went dry. He'd heard whispers of human warships, relics, ghost stories. The sleeper fleet. Nothing real until now. "Power spike," the officer shouted. "They're waking up." On screen, the ship's long-dead engines ignited. Pale blue light spread across its hull. Weapon ports, massive, primitive-looking but devastating even by modern standards, began cycling online. Darnik gripped the arms of his chair. "Open a channel. Hail them now." But there was no response. The ancient ship ignored them, its systems coming back online as if nothing around it mattered. Then a voice, male, cold, and human, cut through the static on all frequencies. "All non-human vessels vacate this sector. You are trespassing. Last warning." Silence followed. The bridge crew of Tal Rith stared at one another, pale with shock. Darnik stood. His instincts screamed at him to run, but he was a Dominion officer. He couldn't show fear. "Bring weapons online," he ordered, though his voice shook. Before the words had even left his mouth, the Nemesis moved. Its ancient main cannon charged with terrifying speed. A single shot lanced out, not at them, but at a derelict station nearby. The structure, 2 kilometers wide, vaporized instantly. The message was clear. "Sir," the officer whispered, voice cracking, This changes everything. If humans had ships like this buried..." Darnik's mind raced. If one human ship had survived, more could exist. For 20,000 years they'd been presumed extinct, silent, waiting. And now they were back. For a long minute after the blast, the bridge of Tal Rith was silent. Only the faint crackle of static from the ruined station drifted through the comms. The crew looked to Darnik. They were waiting, for orders, for guidance, for any scrap of courage. But Darnik's mind was still reeling. He had trained to fight Dominion enemies, pirates, rebels, minor xenofactions. Not this. Not ancient ghosts returning from the dark. "Full sensor sweep," he said at last, his voice a low growl. I want to know everything about that ship. Weak points, power signature, structure, everything." The first officer's hands shook as he worked. "Yes, sir." The display flooded with data, most of it unreadable. The ship's systems were centuries ahead in some areas, absurdly primitive in others. Shielding was minimal, but the hull itself was composed of alloys the Dominion scanners couldn't fully penetrate. Its weapons were brutally simple but immensely powerful. And worst of all, it was running on fusion reactors that should have decayed millennia ago. Yet here they were, purring to life like the ship had been launched yesterday. "Sir," the officer said, his voice hoarse, we can't match it, not with this patrol ship." Darnick didn't need a report to know that. The Tal Rith was a scout vessel, fast and lightly armed. Against a human dreadnought, it wouldn't last seconds. Another burst of signal came from the Nemesis. "Last warning, vacate sector. Further trespass will be considered an act of war." The words were cold, clinical, but beneath them was a steel that no Dominion captain could ignore. Darnick clenched his jaw. He was not a coward. He would not run at the first threat. But neither was he a fool. "Helm," he said, "pull us back to maximum safe distance. Keep scanners on them. I want to see what they do next." The helmsman didn't argue. The Tal Rith slid backward through space, engines humming softly. As the distance grew, the crew's tension eased a fraction. But Darnick's gut twisted tighter. Because the Nemesis wasn't idling. It was moving. Slowly at first, then with growing confidence, the ancient human ship advanced through the sector. Its scans swept wide arcs, probing the stars around it. Darnick could almost feel it, thinking, hunting. "Plot its course," he ordered. The nav officer frowned. "Sir, it's heading toward the old relay grid." Darnick's blood ran cold. The relay grid, a network of abandoned jump relays once used by the old empires, had lain dormant for thousands of years. If the humans were planning to reactivate it, they could reach every corner of the galaxy, and no one was ready for that. "Signal command," Darnick snapped. "Highest priority. Tell them what we found, now." The comms officer hesitated. "Sir, our long-range beacons aren't reaching past this sector. Something is jamming the deep band frequencies." Darnick slammed a fist against his chair. "Of course they are. Damn it!" The humans had come prepared. They'd waited 20 millennia. They weren't going to let the Dominion warn the galaxy before they made their move. That left one option. "We'll have to jump out manually," Darnick said grimly. "Set course for Sector Command. We'll bring this news ourselves." But even as the words left his mouth, a cold dread gnawed at him. Because if the humans had awoken one ship, how many more were waiting? And how many would be unleashed before the Dominion could react? Far away, in the heart of the Dominion's ruling core, the Supreme Archon lounged in his throne, half listening to another report about rising taxes in the outer sectors. Then the emergency alert chimed. A priority message, flagged directly from Sector 7. The dead zone. The Archon's eyes narrowed. The message was fragmented, full of static. But the words that did come through chilled the blood of everyone in the chamber. "Ancient human warship. Designation Nemesis, active. Sector compromised, cannot engage. Fleeing to report." Then silence. The room erupted into chaos. Advisors shouted. Generals scrambled for answers. But the Archon sat still, eyes cold and calculating. Humanity. He had heard the legends. Even in the highest circles, the stories of the Terran wars were whispered in private, like forbidden knowledge. The humans had not been defeated by force. They had simply vanished. Their systems went dark. Their colonies abandoned. No one had ever discovered why, and now one of their ships had returned, not crippled, not decayed, awake and hostile. "Summon the High War Council," the Archon ordered. voice cutting through the noise. "And activate the Black Archives. I want every file on human war doctrine decrypted within the hour." The advisors stared. The Black Archives had been sealed for millennia. "Move!" the Archon roared. The room scattered. Because if the humans were truly back, the Dominion's age of supremacy might be over. Meanwhile, aboard the Nemesis, deep within the ancient command deck, a single human figure stood alone at the helm. Captain Eric Grahn. His face was gaunt, lined with the weight of centuries. His eyes were sharp, ice blue, untouched by time. Cryogenic suspension had preserved him, just as it had preserved the Nemesis and its crew. Around him, figures stirred in pods, soldiers, engineers, tacticians, the elite of Earth's last fleet. The AUI'd voice of the ship, old, masculine, functional, spoke softly in his ear. "Captain, target systems identified. Relay grid in range. Sector scan complete. Dominion forces detected. Minimal." Eric's lip curled in contempt. "Arrogant bastards," he muttered. "They thought we were dead." He ran a hand over the console, the familiar cold steel of humanity's last hope. "Begin relay activation," he ordered, "and wake the rest of the command crew. We've slept long enough." Acknowledged. Across the ship, lights brightened. Systems surged to full power. One by one, more cryopods began to cycle open, releasing hissing clouds of cold vapor. Men and women stepped forth, gaunt, hard-eyed, silent, warriors from another age. And as the relay grid began to hum with renewed life, Eric looked out at the stars. "The galaxy forgot about us," he said softly. "Time to remind them." Back aboard Tal Rith, as the patrol ship hurtled toward jump range, Darnick watched the human ship with grim fascination. "Sir," his officer whispered, pale, "if they activate the grid, they'll spread like wildfire," Darnick said bitterly, "and there's nothing we can do to stop it." He stared at the image of the Nemesis on the screen. "They've been silent for 20,000 years, he murmured, "and now they're back." He looked to his crew, battered, afraid, but still loyal. "We're going to warn command," he said, voice steely, "even if it kills us." And in his gut, he knew one terrible truth. This was only the beginning. The Talrith reached the edge of the sector just as the Nemesis began its first pulse through the ancient relay grid. Darnick sat stiff in his chair, watching the energy patterns swirl across the scanner feeds. The ancient human systems weren't just waking, they were spreading. "Status on the grid?" he demanded. "Partial activation, sir," his officer replied. "They've brought 2 relays online. More are following. Speed. Exponential." Darnick swore under his breath. At this rate, within days, or hours, the humans would have access to dozens of jump routes the Dominion had long abandoned as useless, routes that bypassed modern defensive lines. "Navigation, initiate jump," he ordered. The helmsman worked fast. "Course set, 5 seconds." The ship lurched as its FTL drive engaged. A heartbeat later, stars stretched into ribbons of light, and the Tal Rith vanished into hyperspace, streaking toward Sector Command. Back aboard the Nemesis, Captain Eric Grahn watched the relay grid stabilize. It had been 20,000 years, but the old human engineering still held. "Relay link alpha established," the AI reported. Eric allowed himself a thin smile. "Good. Proceed with the second phase." One by one, the dormant cryo chambers continued to open, waking the rest of his command crew. Tactical Officer Brand Holt staggered out of his pod, shaking off the cold. "Captain," Brand rasped, voice gravelly from disuse. "Status?" Eric clasped his shoulder. "We're back, Brand. The grid is ours. Dominion patrols have fled." Brand's eyes narrowed. "Cowards." "They won't stay cowards for long," Eric said grimly. They'll be sending their fleets now. And us? We move fast. The more relays we activate, the more jump paths we secure. We strike deep where they least expect us. Brand's face hardened. And Earth? A flicker of something passed across Eric's features. Regret, perhaps, or fury. We'll find her, he said quietly. But first we make them bleed. He turned back to the console. On the main display, the next relay in the chain flickered with life. Soon the ancient human fleet, scattered, hidden across forgotten sectors, would have pathways open to them once more. Eric keyed the command. All ships on standby, he said, voice cold. It's time to wake the dead. By the time the Talrith emerged from hyperspace at Sector Command, alarms were already ringing across the Dominion fleet. Darnick stalked down the docking ramp, uniform torn and stained from days without sleep. He was met by a squad of black armored guards who hustled him towards the central briefing chamber. The High War Council was already in session. Dozens of admirals and generals crowded around a vast hollow table where an image of the Nemesis now hovered, grainy, flickering, but unmistakable. When Darnick entered, the room fell silent. The Supreme Archon himself stood at the head of the table, tall and gaunt, his eyes like frozen stone. "Commander Val," the Archon said coldly, "you've seen this with your own eyes?" Darnick nodded. "Yes, Supreme One. The human ship is fully operational. They've taken control of the relay grid." Murmurs swept the room. "How many ships?" an admiral demanded. "Unknown," Darnick admitted. "We saw only the Nemesis, but if one survived, more may follow." Another voice. "Why now? Why after 20 millennia?" Darnick's jaw tightened. "I believe they've been waiting, preserving their strength, watching us grow weak." At that, the Archon raised a hand. The room fell silent again. "You all know the old histories," the Archon said softly. "The humans were never truly defeated. They vanished, leaving ruins and myths. For generations, we've ruled uncontested. But now," his eyes swept the room, "they return." A grim silence followed. Then the Archon spoke, voice iron. "We will not fall. The Dominion commands 10,000 ships. If the humans wish war, we will give it to them." He turned to Darnick. "Commander, you will lead a reconnaissance fleet. Return to the outer sectors, find their bases, find their numbers, and if possible—" A thin smile touched the Archon's lips. "Destroy them," Darnick saluted. Inside, his gut twisted. This was no ordinary foe, but orders were orders. "I will depart within the hour," he said, and as he turned to leave, one terrible thought echoed in his mind. We may already be too late. In deep space, another ancient relay flickered to life. Its energy pulse raced across forgotten lanes, waking systems untouched for millennia. And with it came a signal, an encrypted human beacon. Across the void, hidden bunkers stirred. Old Terran warships, buried in asteroids and derelict moons, began to wake. Cryogenic crews shivered into life. In one such place, a battered cruiser, SSV Hammerfall, rumbled as its ancient reactors reignited. Captain Marcus Riker cracked his neck as he rose from his pod. His beard was ice-frosted, his eyes sharp and merciless. "Report," he barked. The AI responded, "Signal received from Nemesis. War Plan Alpha confirmed. The galaxy has changed, but the enemy remains." Marcus grinned darkly. "Then it's time," he said. "Wake the fleet." Back aboard Nemesis, Eric Gran watched the relay map bloom with light. Dozens of signals now responded, old allies, long lost to time. Brand Holt leaned beside him. "They're coming, Captain," he said grimly. "The Dominion fleets will be moving soon." Eric's expression was cold steel. "Let them come." He studied the growing web of jump paths. "We'll hit their supply lines, their shipyards. We'll remind them what humanity was." "And Earth?" Brand asked again. Eric's gaze darkened. "That's the final step," he said softly. "When we've burned away the rot of this so-called dominion, then we reclaim what was ours." He turned to the crew, voices rising behind him as more officers returned to duty. "Prepare all weapon systems," Eric ordered, "and plot our first strike." The Nemesis pulsed with power, ancient engines ready to hurl it back into the heart of the stars. 20,000 years of silence had ended. Now came the reckoning. Space rippled as the Nemesis entered its first jump. The ancient human warship shuddered with controlled violence, punching through folds of hyperspace toward its first target, a Dominion supply depot deep in Sector 9. Captain Eric Gran stood at the helm, hands clasped behind his back, watching the holo display. "All systems stable," Brandholt reported. "Jump trajectory confirmed. We'll exit in 30 seconds. Eric nodded. "Prepare weapons." All across the Nemesis, ancient turrets powered up, their barrels gleaming in the cold light. The rail cannons, old tech, brutally simple, had been enhanced during the ship's long sleep. They would punch through any modern Dominion shielding. Beside them, missile silos opened, revealing warheads built in the last desperate years of humanity's war. No fancy energy weapons, no elegant disintegration beams, just raw, unstoppable force, the kind the galaxy had forgotten. 15 seconds to emergence, the AI intoned. Eric's eyes hardened. "No mercy, no survivors. We send a message today." The Dominion depot at Station Karsus had no reason to expect an attack. For centuries, it had served as a quiet logistics hub, resupplying outpost fleets. Its garrison was minimal, a few light cruisers, a scattering of patrol craft. The sector was considered secure. Complacency. That was their first mistake. When the Nemesis ripped out of hyperspace, alarms barely had time to sound. "Unidentified vessel," a Dominion officer screamed on the station bridge. "Unknown class, ancient human markings." Before he could finish, the first rail round slammed into the nearest cruiser. The ship fractured mid-hull, exploding in a blossom of white-hot debris. A second round followed, punching through the station's primary shield generator. Power grids failed in an instant. Then the missiles came. Dozens of them, sleek, dark, fast. They weaved through the desperate defensive fire and struck the station's fuel reserves. The resulting detonation lit the sector like a miniature sun. Within 3 minutes, the battle was over. The once proud Dominion depot hung in space, burning and broken. The surviving crew sent panicked distress calls across every frequency. And then, on all channels, a voice spoke. "This is Captain Eric Gran of the human warship Nemesis. Your Dominion has ruled by fear and deceit. Humanity remembers. We are coming." The message repeated, broadcast across the sector, picked up by hundreds of relays. A declaration of war. Back at Sector Command, Darnik Val watched the reports flood in. His stomach knotted with every word. "Karsus Depot. Gone," an intelligence officer whispered. 3 minutes. No survivors. A cold sweat trickled down Darnik's spine. "They're moving faster than we thought." The Supreme Archon stood rigid, fists clenched behind his back. "They want us afraid," he said softly. "They want us panicked." He turned to Darnik. "Deploy the 2nd and 5th fleets. Hunt them down." Darnik hesitated. "With respect, Supreme One, they're using the old relays. We can't track their jumps." "Then block the relays," the Archon snapped. "Impossible," another admiral said grimly. "The humans designed them. They can bypass any of our overrides." The Archon's face darkened. For the first time in decades, the Dominion's absolute ruler felt the edge of fear. "They must be contained," he said coldly, "whatever it costs." Darnik bowed. I will lead the pursuit myself, he said. And as he turned to leave, one thought burned in his mind. We are not ready for this war. Across the galaxy, the ripples spread. The human signals, defiant, brutal, reached old colonies, forgotten ruins, ancient allies who had once feared the Dominion but now heard a new voice in the stars. In backwater systems, old resistance cells stirred. The memory of humanity's last stand had never fully died. Now it blazed anew. In a pirate enclave in the Eos Belt, a grizzled captain named Rax heard the broadcast. His single remaining eye gleamed. "Well, well," he muttered. "The old wolves are back." And he wasn't alone. Across 100 systems, mercenaries, smugglers, and warlords began to shift loyalties, because the Dominion wasn't invincible anymore. Aboard Nemesis, Eric Gran stood in the war room, studying the unfolding chaos. "Reports?" he asked. Brandholt grinned. "The sector's in full panic. Dominion fleet scrambling. Border patrols pulling back. Several pirate bands already offering to aid us." Eric nodded. "Good. Fear is our first weapon." He pointed to the star map. "We strike again within the hour. No rest, no pause. We keep them chasing shadows." Brand's eyes gleamed. "And when they overextend?" Eric's voice was cold steel. "Then we bleed them dry." Around him, the ancient human officers, awake now, fully briefed, nodded grimly. These were not men and women of diplomacy. They were warriors, born from humanity's last great war, hardened by the knowledge that they had slept through the death of their civilization. And now, they were awake. In deep Dominion space, Darnik Val's fleet gathered. 30 cruisers, 10 battleships, hundreds of support craft, a force unmatched by any modern threat, except this one. On his bridge, Darnik stood rigid, eyes on the tactical display. "We will intercept them," he told his crew. "We will remind them that the Dominion does not bow to ghosts." But inside, his doubts festered. They were not fighting an ordinary enemy. They were fighting a myth, a force that had been silent for 20,000 years and now struck with terrifying precision. Still, orders were orders. "Plot pursuit course," he said grimly. The chase had begun. Aboard Nemesis, as the ship jumped toward its next target, Eric Gran allowed himself a rare moment of reflection. Brandholt stepped beside him. "We've lit the spark, Captain," Brand said. "The galaxy will never be the same." Eric's gaze was cold. "It's only the beginning," he said. "We've woken up. Now we teach them to fear us again." And as the stars bent before them, the ancient warship surged forward, a ghost from humanity's past, burning with purpose. The age of silence was over. Now came the war. The Dominion's Second Fleet cut across the stars like a blade, 30 warships strong, bristling with the latest weapons and shielding. They advanced in tight formation toward the activated relay grid. At the heart of the fleet, Commander Darnik Val paced his flagship's bridge, sharp-eyed, grim-faced. "Current intel on the human ship?" he demanded. His sensor chief replied, "Nemesis jumped out of Sector 9 after the depot strike. Last known vector indicates movement toward Sector 12. Darnik studied the tactical map. Sector 12 housed multiple supply lanes, soft targets. The humans were baiting them. "Typical raiding doctrine," Darnik muttered. "Hit, move, draw pursuit." But this was no ordinary pirate band, no mere raiders. He turned to his XO. "Prepare the fleet. Tight formations. No stragglers. We catch them. We crush them." "Yes, sir." But even as the orders were given, a knot of unease twisted in Darnik's gut. The Dominion had ruled the stars for centuries, but in every war game, one lesson remained true. Fighting humans was gone different. They didn't break when cornered. They didn't surrender when outnumbered. They fought until the stars burned out. Aboard Nemesis, Eric Gran stood over the war table, watching Dominion fleet movements unfold in real time. His tech crews had hacked Dominion channels easily. Arrogance had bred complacency. "They're coming," Brandholt said with a sharp grin. "Full fleet. They think they've got us." Eric's gaze was cold. "Good. Let them come." He pointed to a marked region on the star map, a dense asteroid field laced with ancient debris. "We jump there," he said. "Force them into tight quarters. Negate their numbers." Brand's eyes gleamed. Classic Terran doctrine. Eric allowed himself a faint smile. It won wars before. It will again. Around them, the crew moved with crisp precision. These were soldiers from humanity's darkest hour, veterans of battles fought when survival itself had hung by a thread. And now they faced an empire fat on its own arrogance. Eric raised his voice. "We strike today not just to survive, but to remind them what humanity is." A chorus of steel-eyed nods answered him. The Nemesis prepared for war. The jump to the asteroid field was surgical. As the Nemesis tore through hyperspace, its old engines hummed with terrifying power. Within seconds, it emerged among the rocks, a graveyard of ancient battles, jagged stone and wreckage tumbling in the void. "Deploy drone mines," Eric ordered. Sleek black devices launched from hidden bays, vanishing among the asteroids. "Activate stealth fields." The Nemesis's hull shimmered, its signature dropping to near invisibility against the chaotic background. Now they waited. Hours later, the Dominion's second fleet arrived. Darnik Val stood rigid on his bridge as the vast swarm of ships exited hyperspace. "Scanners," he barked. "Locate them." "Negative contact," the sensor chief replied, sweat beading his brow. "Asteroid interference. Heavy ECM presence." Darnik's jaw tightened. "They're here," he said flatly. "They want us in the rocks." His XO shifted uneasily. "Sir, entering the field will break fleet cohesion." "They're trying to divide us," Darnik said grimly. "But if we don't engage, they'll keep raiding unchecked." He made his decision. "All ships, advance into the field. Maintain squadron cohesion. Weapons free." The Dominion fleet surged forward, and the trap was sprung. The first kill came fast. A Dominion destroyer, pushing too deep, triggered a hidden mine. The blast ripped through its hull, scattering molten debris. Before the fleet could react, Nemesis struck. From the shadows, rail rounds lanced out, pinpoint strikes that shattered shielding and punched clean through cruiser armor. 1, 2, 3 ships died in under a minute. Chaos erupted. "Enemy fire! Multiple vectors!" Dominion officers screamed. "Reform lines!" Darnik roared. "Counter battery! Now!" But the asteroid field worked against them. Every formation broke. Sightlines vanished. Ships drifted apart, isolated, and the Nemesis hunted. On the human warship's bridge, Eric Gron watched the kill feeds. "Maintain shadow maneuvers," he ordered. "We bleed them slowly." Brandholt grinned wolfishly. "They're panicking already." Indeed, the Dominion comms were a mess. Frantic orders, ships screaming for support. Eric's voice was cold steel. "Good. Push harder." Another volley fired. Another Dominion battleship crippled. Eric moved with the calm of a man who had seen worse. Far worse. This was war, and humanity remembered it well. In the heart of the battle, Darnik Val fought to regain control. "Group your squadrons," he barked. "Don't chase ghosts. Force them to show themselves." But even as he spoke, another of his cruisers detonated in a blinding flash. Damn them, Darnik thought bitterly. They were bleeding the fleet to death, one cut at a time. And worse, the reports coming in were clear. One ship was doing this. One, an ancient relic, yet it outmatched a modern Dominion fleet. Arrogance had led them here. Now it cost lives by the minute. Darnik slammed a fist into his chair. "We must pull back," his XO said urgently. We're losing too many. Not yet, Darnik growled. His pride wouldn't let him flee. Not yet. But aboard Nemesis, Eric Gran sensed the turning point. Now, he ordered. Strike hard, drive them out. All weapons fired in unison, a coordinated barrage that shredded 2 more Dominion ships. Then the Nemesis surged forward, engines flaring bright. Like a wolf among sheep, the ancient warship tore through the fragmented fleet. Dominion ships scattered, some fleeing, some trying to regroup. It was too late. On Darnik's flagship, the bridge shook as another blast rocked the hull. Shields failing. We must withdraw. At last, bitterly, Darnik gave the order. All ships, retreat! Jump now! His battered fleet limped away, broken and bloodied, and behind them, Nemesis watched, silent, victorious. When the smoke cleared, 15 Dominion ships were gone. The rest fled into the void. Aboard Nemesis, Eric stood at the helm, eyes cold as ice. Casualties? He asked. Minimal, Brandholt reported. No critical damage. Eric nodded. This is only the beginning, he said quietly. He turned to his crew. Prepare for the next strike. We keep the pressure on. We remind them... He looked out at the stars. That humanity has returned. And across the galaxy, fear began to spread. The age of Dominion supremacy was cracking, and the war was just beginning. The defeat at the asteroid field sent shockwaves through the Dominion. Word of the loss spread faster than any official broadcast could contain. The myth of Dominion invincibility, already cracked, now showed deep fractures. In the high command chambers of the Dominion Corps world, a council of admirals and warlords argued in rising voices. The Second Fleet was humiliated, one admiral shouted, by a single human warship. This isn't an ordinary enemy, another countered. They fight like no force we've seen in centuries. They adapt. They hunt us. Enough, came the cold voice of the Supreme Archon. Silence fell. All eyes turned to him. We underestimated them, the Archon said, voice even. We will not make that mistake again. He gestured to a holo display, which flickered to life. The Nemesis appeared, scanned in fragmented detail, but its lethality now proven beyond doubt. Our forces grow fat and complacent, the Archon said. This ship, this crew, they are forged from war. We will match them with warriors of the same steel. An admiral frowned. Our best fleets are spread thin. We can't concentrate enough force to pin them down. Then we adapt, the Archon said coldly. We create strike groups, fast, flexible. We hunt them the way they hunt us. And if they awaken more ships? Another voice asked. The Archon's eyes gleamed. Then we burn every old relay, every ruin, every forgotten corner of the galaxy. We starve them. He turned to Darnik Val. You faced them. You know their mind. Darnik, standing straight despite the wounds of defeat, nodded grimly. They will not fight fair. They will strike where we are weak. Supply lines, communication hubs, isolated garrisons. Then we must prepare for war on every front, the Archon said. No more arrogance, no more assumptions. He leaned forward, and we send a message of our own. Aboard the Nemesis, Eric Gran stood in the war room, surrounded by his command staff. The glow of victory still burned in their eyes, but Eric's gaze remained cold, calculating. The Dominion is wounded, Brandholt said, but they'll strike back, hard. They already are, Eric replied. He pointed to a series of fast-moving Dominion strike groups now patrolling the relay network. They're learning, adapting. We can stay ahead of them, Brand said. We've got the grid. They can't predict our jumps. For now, Eric said, but they'll start burning relays soon, cutting off our routes. A tech officer spoke up. We're detecting movement near the old Terran sectors. They know we'll try to awaken more ships. Eric's jaw tightened. That was the true race. The Nemesis alone couldn't win this war, not forever. But if they could awaken the rest of the sleeper fleet... He looked at the star map, eyes narrowing. "We strike deep," he said. "Coreward, force them to pull fleets inward. Then we free more ships on the rim." He turned to the crew. "We fight fast, we fight hard, we fight like ghosts. The Dominion thinks it can outlast us." A grim smile touched his lips. They're wrong. In the shadows of the galaxy, old human outposts began to stir. Eric's broadcast from the battle had reached far, on a forgotten moon in the Tarsus Reach. An old Terran command bunker flickered to life. Automated systems powered up. A single figure, Commander Lena Kor, stepped from cryo-sleep, eyes burning with purpose. She read the signal from Nemesis, lips curling in a fierce smile. "It's time," she whispered. Across the outpost, buried ships began powering up. SSV Vindicator, SSV Blade, SSV Revenant. One by one, the dead were waking. In the Dominion's inner council, Darnik Val prepared to return to the front. Armor freshly repaired, mind sharpened by defeat, he studied the latest intelligence. "They'll move coreward," he said to his XO. "Draw our fleets inward. But their real goal is to awaken more of their kind." The XO nodded. "Shall we pursue?" "We will," Darnik said. "But carefully. No more blundering into traps." He clenched his fists. "We hunt them now." His new strike group was smaller, faster, veterans from the Dominion's elite fleets. No more green crews. Darnik would face the humans again, and this time he would not break. Aboard Nemesis, the crew prepared for the next assault. Their target, a Dominion communication hub in Sector 3. Lightly defended, critical for Dominion fleet coordination. "This will hurt them," Brand said. "Blind their fleets. Give us room to move." Eric nodded. "We strike fast, we vanish. No prolonged battle." The crew moved with grim efficiency. The Nemesis jumped. Seconds later, it emerged near the hub. Railguns fired instantly, crippling outer defenses. Missile salvos followed, hammering the station's core. Dominion defenders scrambled, but it was chaos. The Nemesis was in and out within minutes. The hub burned. Across the sector, Dominion comms faltered. Fleets lost coordination. Panic spread, and the message repeated. Humanity remembers. In the aftermath, Darnik's strike group closed in, but too late. The Nemesis had vanished. "This pattern," Darnik said, studying the attacks. "They're forcing us to defend everything, stretching us thin." His XO spoke grimly. "We can't be everywhere." "Then we don't try," Darnik said. "We focus on the relays, cut their movement, starve them of allies." He leaned over the tactical map. "And when they go to awaken more ships, we'll be waiting." Far across the rim, Captain Marcus Riker of the SSV Hammerfall led a newly awakened task force. 5 human ships now gathered, old, brutal, deadly. "Orders from Nemesis," Riker said to his crew. "We strike supply convoys, force the Dominion to pull back." The humans moved with lethal precision. Convoys vanished, outposts burned, the Dominion's grip on its outer sectors began to slip, and whispers spread. "The humans are back. The Dominion is bleeding." Hope and fear rippled across the stars. Back aboard Nemesis, Eric Gran stood alone at the observation window. The stars stretched before him, old, familiar, and changed. Brandholt approached. "The fleet grows, more outposts waking." "And the Dominion?" Eric asked. "Desperate, lashing out, but still dangerous." Eric's gaze was cold. "It will get worse," he said. "They'll send everything soon." He turned to Brand. "Prepare for that day. We haven't won yet." Brand nodded. "But we've started something they can't stop." And Eric knew it was true. The fire had been lit. Humanity was awake, and the war for the galaxy had only begun. In the cold heart of Dominion space, the Supreme Archon stood before the High War Council. The chamber, vast and shadowed, thrummed with tension. Holographic displays showed the latest warfront updates, red markers flashing where human forces had struck, outposts lost, supply lines severed, sectors in chaos, and the morale reports worse than the damage. For the first time in generations, Dominion citizens whispered of fear, of failure, of humans. The Archon's eyes burned with cold fury. "We face an enemy that does not fear death," he said, voice cutting through the council chamber. "One ship became 10. 10 will become a fleet, and if we allow this rot to spread—" He let the words hang. Everyone knew the truth. The Dominion's grip on the galaxy was slipping. Darnik Val stood before the council, armored and cold-eyed. Battle-hardened now, his reputation restored through relentless pursuit of the human threat. "They are striking our weak points," Darnik said, "but their numbers are still limited. We can crush them if we act decisively." "And how?" an admiral sneered. "They vanish between strikes. They use our own ancient networks to stay ahead." "They think we will play their game," Darnik said. "We will not." He brought up a star map. A series of key relay junctions lit up. "We cannot defend everywhere, but we can trap them. If we predict their next awakening attempts—" Another admiral leaned forward. "Bait them," Darnik nodded. "Draw them in, then strike with overwhelming force." The Supreme Archon's eyes gleamed. "Very well. You will lead this effort, Commander Val." A pause. Then, and to ensure success, a new holofeed activated, revealing a fleet unlike any the Council had seen in centuries. Dark-hulled warships, prototype strike cruisers, elite Dominion warbands, hand-picked veterans, ruthless and fanatical. The Dominion's Black Spear Fleet, a force never deployed until now. The Archon's voice was ice. "Destroy them, Darnik. Burn their ghosts to ash." Darnik saluted. "It will be done." Aboard Nemesis, Eric Grand studied the latest reports. More Dominion relays burned, more outposts gone, human cells waking across distant sectors, the sleeper fleet growing, slowly but surely. Yet, "They're adapting," Brandholt said, pacing. "Dominion fleet's moving smarter, faster response times." "And the Black Spear?" Eric asked. Brand's face darkened. "Intel confirms deployment. Elite force. We've never faced them." Eric stared at the star map. "They'll set a trap," he said. "Soon, they have to." He looked to his crew. "We need to stay ahead. Keep moving. Hit harder." He pointed to the next phase of their plan, a series of relay stations where hidden human warships were still buried. "We awaken more ships. No choice now." He turned to Brand. "And we send a message." The broadcast went out within the hour, on every open channel the humans could reach. Eric's face appeared on screens across 100 sectors. "This is Captain Eric Gran, of the Terran Sleeper Fleet. You believed humanity forgotten? You believed your empire eternal." A pause, ice in his voice. "You were wrong. Every act of tyranny, every purge, every colony crushed under your heel, we remember. We will not stop. We will not run. We will fight. And when your stars burn, when your fleets shatter, you will remember us." The message hit the Dominion like a hammer. In core worlds, riots sparked. Border garrisons reported rising unrest. Pirates and rebels pledged allegiance to the human cause. And in the shadows, ancient enemies of the Dominion stirred, watching with hungry eyes. In Sector 7, aboard the Black Spear flagship Dreadclaw, Darnik Val prepared his ambush. He stood on the war deck, addressing his strike captains, veterans clad in dark armor, eyes sharp with hate. "The humans grow bold," Darnik said, "but they are few. They rely on shadows." He pointed to the relay network. They will move here, to awaken more of their fleet. We will be ready." He looked at the men. "No retreat, no mercy. We will end this today." A grim chorus answered him. "Glory to the Dominion." The trap was set. Aboard Nemesis, the crew prepared to move. "Relay intercepts show increased Dominion chatter near these sectors," Brand said. "It's bait." "They want us to walk into it," Eric said. "And we will." He looked to the crew, hard men and women who had survived a dead age to fight again. "But not on their terms." He tapped the map. "We strike first, disable their trap, then awaken the fleet." The Nemesis jumped, through darkened relays, past burned-out stations, into the heart of the Dominion's trap. But the humans came prepared. The first clash came fast. Dominion picket ships detected the Nemesis, but too late. Railguns shredded the outer screen, mines scattered, cutting off retreat paths. The Black Spear fleet surged forward, disciplined, brutal. Darnik Val watched from Dreadclaw's bridge. "They came," he said coldly. "Begin the kill." But aboard Nemesis, Eric Gron's eyes were sharp. "They're moving faster, smarter." He activated a counterplan. "Deploy decoys, split their formation." Dronecraft launched, mimicking Nemesis's signature. Dominion ships split pursuit, fracturing the trap. Then Nemesis struck the heart. A precision jump, microsecond timed. The ancient warship emerged inside the relay control station's perimeter, point blank. Railguns fired, missiles followed. The station shuddered, its command net collapsing. The relay, key to the Dominion's ambush, went dark, and the trap broke. Darnik Val's eyes burned with fury. "Status! Relay down! Enemy warship still active, causing chaos!" Darnik slammed a fist on the console. "Reroute fleet, box them in!" But the Nemesis danced through the chaos, wounded but deadly. On board, Eric stood at the helm. "We won't win this head-on," Brand warned. "We're not here to win," Eric said. "We're here to buy time." Time for the other human ships, Hammerfall, Vindicator, Blade, to awaken. Time for the galaxy to change. As the battle raged, Eric gave the order. "Jump out, now!" The Nemesis vanished into the void, scarred but unbroken. In the aftermath, the Dominion fleet counted its losses. The ambush had failed. The relay was gone. And Darnik Val stood in bitter silence. They escaped, but his eyes were cold, calculating. "We will adapt again." Aboard Nemesis, Eric looked out at the stars. "We bled them," Brand said, "but they're learning." "So must we," Eric said. "We fight a war of ghosts, but now we need a fleet." And across the stars, more human ships stirred. The next phase of the war was coming. Total war. For weeks after the failed Dominion ambush, the galaxy seemed to hold its breath. Both sides moved in shadows, probing, striking, vanishing. The Nemesis had survived. The sleeper fleet continued to grow, but the Dominion had not broken, not yet. And now the time had come. Not for raiding, not for ambushes, for war. Aboard Nemesis, deep in a hidden sector far beyond known space, Eric Gron stood before a growing fleet. 30 ships now gathered, awakened from ancient bunkers, rebuilt from forgotten arsenals. Nemesis, Hammerfall, Vindicator, Blade, Revenant, Warhound, Ironclad, and more. Ships of war, ships of vengeance. Their crews, battle-hardened, awakened Terran veterans and descendants of lost human colonies, stood ready. In the command deck of Nemesis, Eric addressed them through the fleet-wide channel. "This is the moment we have prepared for," he said, voice hard as steel. "They thought they could trap us, crush us piecemeal, but they failed." He looked at the star map. Dominion territory stretched before them, lines of supply and control spidering outward from their core worlds. "We will not run anymore," Eric said. "We will not hide." He pointed to the first targets. key Dominion shipyards, fuel depots, relay hubs. We strike deep, we cripple their ability to wage war, and we show the galaxy that the Dominion bleeds. Across the fleet, captains and crews answered as one. Humanity fights. Humanity remembers. Humanity returns. In the Dominion core worlds, alarms rose. Scouts reported massing human fleets, entire sectors now destabilized, sleeper cells rising, pirate bands defecting. The Supreme Archon's Council met in grim urgency. They are no longer a raiding force, one admiral said. They are an army. They threaten core supply lanes, another warned. If we lose the Karsus yards, we will not, the Archon said coldly. He turned to Darnik Val. You will command the counteroffensive. Darnik, now fully battle-hardened and granted supreme field command, nodded. I will face them, he said, and this time I will break them. The battle lines were drawn. The Nemesis-led sleeper fleet jumped first. Through secret relays only the old Terran network knew. Their first target, the Dominion shipyards at Karsus, a linchpin of Dominion fleet power. The assault began with no warning. The sleeper fleet emerged in a staggered wave, ships leaping in at multiple vectors, overwhelming the outer defenses. Railguns fired in precise salvos. Missile barrages crippled the orbital platforms. In minutes, the outer perimeter fell. Dominion defense fleets scrambled, fighting with desperate fury. But they faced warriors who had been bred in humanity's last, greatest war, who knew no surrender, no retreat. Aboard Hammerfall, Captain Marcus Riker led the vanguard assault, his ship's heavy guns blasting apart Dominion cruisers at close range. "Push them!" Riker barked. "No mercy!" On Nemesis's bridge, Eric directed the battle with cold precision. "Flank hard, cut their reinforcement paths. Target the yards themselves. We're not here for a battle of attrition. We're here to cripple them." The Dominion fought back with savage determination. The Black Spear Fleet, under Darnik's command, surged into the fight, elite ships striking hard. Darnik's eyes burned with purpose. "They will not win," he swore. He personally led his flagship Dreadclaw into the thick of the fight, engaging Hammerfall head-on. Across the battle, the tide raged. The Nemesis, at the heart of the sleeper fleet, danced through Dominion lines, its ancient weapons striking with terrifying precision. But Dominion numbers were vast. Even wounded, their fleets were formidable, casualties mounted on both sides. The void burned with wreckage and fire. In the midst of battle, Eric saw the turning point, a weakness in the Dominion formation, an exposed supply conduit running through Karsus' industrial belt. He keyed the command. "All ships, strike the conduit, now!" The sleeper fleet surged. Rail rounds and torpedoes tore through the conduit. Secondary explosions rippled across the shipyards. Karsus burned. Dominion reinforcements staggered. Fleet cohesion broken. Darnik Val saw it happening, and with brutal clarity, made his choice. "Fall back," he ordered. "Regroup for counterstrike." It stung his pride, but Karsus was lost. Staying meant losing everything. As Dominion forces withdrew, the sleeper fleet pressed their advantage, crippling the yards, ensuring Dominion repair and refit capacity would suffer for months to come. Victory. But a costly one. Ships of both sides burned in the void, lives lost, war at its purest. In the aftermath, aboard Nemesis, Eric stood with Brand Holt. "We did it," Brand said. "Karsus is gone." Eric's eyes remained cold. "We won a battle," he said. "Not the war." He looked at the damaged fleet. Many ships scarred, supplies running thin. "We need allies," he said. And across the stars, they waited. Neutral factions, rebel worlds, former human colonies long in hiding. Now, with the Dominion bleeding, they would choose sides. Back in Dominion Command, the Archon received Darnick's report with cold fury. "They strike too fast," the Archon said. "We cannot sustain this war of attrition." Darnick's voice was hard. "Then we must change the war." He looked at the star map, at human-aligned sectors rising in rebellion. "They fight for memory, for vengeance. We must break that spirit." A grim silence, then the Archon spoke. "So be it. Begin the purge. A new phase of war. No more limited strikes. No more honor. Scorched earth. Total war, and Eric knew it was coming. On Nemesis's bridge, he addressed the fleet once more. "They will come now with everything," he said. "They will burn worlds, kill civilians, try to turn fear against us." He looked at his commanders. "We will not break." He pointed to the next objectives: Dominion core systems, fuel hubs, relay nexus points. "We strike again, and again, until their empire collapses." He looked out at the stars. "This is humanity's war now, and we will see it through." And across the galaxy, the fires of total war spread. Humanity had returned, and the Dominion would never be the same.